This is a tutorial how to get started with the TI Nspire calculator. It's mainly for teachers to get started, but students can also go along with this. And press to test is the last item that I'll go through, and that will be for students and also for teachers. I'll create another press to test video that will help you set up the docking station so you can get that going. But we just want to get you going with some of these buttons, etc., and see how it goes. So some key buttons. The menu button is one of the key items that will help you, and so when you're in certain modes, you pop this open and you'll find lots of things that you do need. If you want to right click ever, you can go control menu, and that will be similar to right clicking, and that will give you different various menu items as you go along. So what I might want to do is that right now I'm in documents, so I might want to add a page. So what I do is I go control doc, and I can play around with whatever things that I want here. So for instance, if I add a calculator, if I just type in E like that, that's italicized E. That is not your normal Euler number. You have to get your normal Euler number from here, or else you can press this pi button and do this E. These two E's are different. This first E is not Euler's number, this second one is. And so if you need that, you need to make sure that Euler's number is darkened as such. Also, if you do, for instance, the sign, notice that it went from italics to straight up. When it's straight up, it is reading it as the sign, and you can just type that in. Otherwise, you can go here to the trig values, and they have the sign as well. And you just push escape if you want to get out of that. So you can do this of any value. So if this is 2 pi, you can type in pi if you want, and you get that. The pi button also would be here, though, if you wanted to. Just make sure, though, that the E is the darkened E. For instance, if I want to capture something, I can go up and highlight on it, hit enter, and it will show again. Now, if I want the approximation for that, and I'm in exacting mode, I can go control enter, and then that will give me my value in approximate form. Control enter. You see the approximate equal signs? There it is. Okay? So that's just a couple buttons that might help you. Now in calculator modes, let's see what happens when we do the menu item. Oh, there's lots of things. So we have actions, we have number, so you convert to decimal. You could use convert to decimal instead of the control enter that we did. But then if you're in the CAS, the CAS, then you can do a lot of these other things. Maybe if you have the CX, you can't do a lot of these things. But I'm not going to go through all these menus, but you should go here and look for them and see what's in each one once you get to them. Oh, there's the factorial. And then statistics, tests, and so on. Okay, that's all in calculator mode. If I create a new page and I want to do graphs, if I press the menu item, now I get a different selection of items here. And so you'd have to figure out what you want. Graph entry, you can enter your graph in different forms, parametric form, polar, and so on. And then the window and zoom is just that. It sets your window and zoom in, zoom out. And trace, I'm not going to go into that too much. You can play around with that, but that is tracing the graph. And then analyze graph. This is all your items that you need when you have a graph and you want to find intersections, max, mins, and some of your calculus items too. Geometry, that is your draw tool, and so you can play with that. And then settings. Settings is kind of important here. I'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but if you click on settings, this is why you're in graph mode. And notice that mine's in radian. If I want it in degrees, I got to put it in degrees, or vice versa. What happens is that if you set your calculator to be radians, it isn't always set for every item. So in other words, if you're in calculator mode and you did settings, that's just going to be for calculator mode. If you're in graph mode and you set it just for radians, then that will just be in the graph mode. So sometimes you think that you've set radians or degrees, but you really haven't in that particular mode. You did it in one mode, but you didn't do it in others. And if you make default, that's good, because when you come back, then it's going to be in that mode for a long time. So for my pre-calculus, we do radian. Geometry angle, you can leave in degree. Now say, for instance, that on here, I can do my mode 2. So this is back at the calculator page. This isn't necessarily set, so I got to go to my home screen and then do number 5. So I'm going to punch number 5 here. If I want to change my document settings, there's my angle measurement that I do for that. And then I go ahead and make sure that I make default, and then that will apply it to my documents over here. Now Scratchpad is a different side of the calculator, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's finish up with some of my key buttons though. The other key button that I find is really important is this one right here, because this will give you a menu of items that you need. So if I'm again in calculator mode and I click on this, this will give me a fraction, this will give me a power, this will give me a, and various different buttons. There's the E and different ones there. If you click on these matrix things, this is specifically a 2x2 matrix. This is any dimension matrix. So if you just click on that, then you can set your numbers in rows. So that's a very important button right there. Another good button to know is that, for instance, if I am in radian mode and maybe your physics class isn't, or different things like that, you can do degree. Now this would give me it in radians, and so if I do the approximate equal thing, this is not what we would term to be the cosine of 30 degrees. It is the cosine of 30 when 30 is in radians though. If I want the cosine of 30 degrees, I could switch the mode and do all the settings. I don't want to do that though. So you can click on this little question mark, and here's another menu of items, and I can find the degree thing right there, and when I do that, now that will give me the cosine of 30 degrees and the exact value, or else approximate value. I can go like that. So instead of flipping back and forth between radian and degrees modes or settings all the time, you can just keep it in radian and then just use the little degree symbol there when you need to. So back to my original menu, key buttons, I've already shown you quite a few. And then we're in radians or degrees, I've done that. Now we want to do Scratchpad versus documents. And so there's two sides of the calculator. One is Scratchpad with this button here, and the other one's documents here. So if I click on Scratchpad, this is like just a regular calculator. You cannot save pages, but you just either have the calculator page or else you have the graphing page. Calculations, graphing. Now if you want to switch over from this, you can go Control and arrow. That will switch you back and forth from the tabs. If I'm on the computer mode, I can just click on it, which makes it easier, but it's Control left and right will move you back and forth. Okay, so if I want to graph here, I can graph 2x plus 1, no problem. Okay, and then here's the calculator mode. If you're in documents, I showed you a little bit of that though, so if I want to escape there, if you're in documents, then you can add the pages that you want, and when you add the pages that you want, you clarify which particular type of page that you want to put in there. So I'm going to add a page here. If I want to add graphs, there's my graphs. Okay, and then I could do any one of those other ones too that I want. Geometry, lists and spreadsheets, etc. Okay, so that's using both of those. I like using the documents a lot better just because you can save your work and go back and look at it quite easily. And you can save pages on different problems. So if there's one that's tricky that's been bothering you, you need to have a student look at it, or vice versa. Student, you need a teacher to look at it. You have it in your calculator all set, ready to go. And the new operating system puts this up at the top, so make sure you get the new operating system. Okay, I've shown you how to do calculations. Now you need to know how to graph. And so that would be in the graph mode if we're on the document settings. And so I'm just going to get to a page that would be a graph here, and there we are. So all you do is type in the equation that you want, 2x plus 2. That would be an equation. Now to get that menu bar back, you can either push tab, or you can, well, here's tab right here. If I click tab, it brings it back. Otherwise, you can go Control G for graph. Either way, it will bring those menu items back. Now you say, oh, where's F4? I don't see F4. Well, if you go up, there it is. So you just use the up and down arrows to show you where you are at. And so if I do, for instance, negative 3x minus 4, now I have system of linear equations. Now with your calculator mode here, what you can do, your graphing mode, what you can do now is do menu and analyze graph. Under analyze graph, I can find the intersection. And so all I do is a lower bound. I can either click here or type a number. So I'm going to click there, and on this side I'm going to type in 0. So either way, click or type in a number. And there's my intersection. Now notice this is to 1 decimal place. So this is my intersection point. Now do you think it's spot on like that or not? Well, a lot of times when we do intersections of different curves, we're not going to have just 1 decimal place. So what you can do is you can hover over the top of this instead of setting decimal places, different things like that. So when you hover over the top of that, then you go and push the plus button. So you can just go plus, and it does turn out to be exact there. And so if I do this one plus, I don't have any more decimal places, so that's all the decimal places that I'm going to get. So if I change one of my equations, I want more decimal places. So if I change it to something like this, that's changed my graph a little bit, and now these things will show up with more decimal places because I did do the plus. So if I do this and I don't want that many decimal places, I can go minus. Oh, it should work. There it is. And so minus would give us less decimal places. If I want more, I go plus. Make sure that it gets grayed out, and then you can go less and more on the graph. For my AP Calculus students, this is very important because they need answers to 3 decimal places. So sometimes it looks like there's only 1 decimal place, and then you have to do 3. And it's hidden under there, and you just have to do the plus stuff. So that's how to set decimal places when you're in the graph mode. If you're not in the graph mode and you want to set decimal places, what you can do is go to the home screen and once again settings, and you should be able to do this under document settings and change the display digits to whatever you want. Okay, I got float 6, and so it's going to go out to 6. It's not going to show, like a 1 is not going to be a 1.00000, so on, because it is on float. If you wanted to do that, you could do fixed certain amount of decimal places for whatever you're dealing with. Okay, so you can just select one of those and play around with that and see how it goes. Okay, so I want float 6, and then I'm going to make that default and then do OK. Now I'm not sure if that's set that in Scratchpad as well, but it usually does that in documents. So you'd have to, that's why I don't like using Scratchpad, but I always use the documents because you never know where your settings are there exactly. You just have to set them individually. Now if you do want to set up a tutorial, what you can do here is you can go to on button and then create a new document. And do I want to save changes? Yes, I want to save changes. So this file is all being saved. Now I have a new document and I got to start with where I want. So maybe if I add notes and just, this is a new tutorial. Okay, so if you want to create pages, so for instance the next one you want to do a graph. So then I can put in a graph, 2x, and go ahead and graph it. Just press enter. And then I could do some calculations with that, and so on. And so that's how you can set up a tutorial, add notes, or else add the graphs, and put those things in there as you wish. Now, there are more advanced topics to do, and you can do different chapters. So this says 1, you can do different chapters, but I'm not going to show you that in this video. Then the final one is press to test, getting in and out. And maybe I'll make it a separate video for this one as well. But press to test, getting in and out, these are the steps that you'll need. To get into press to test, what press to test does is that it kind of blanks out anything that's been in your calculator previous, and then anything that's done in press to test will disappear when you get out of press to test. So it is exactly for that, to test. And so to get in, what you want to do is turn off the calculator, and then you're going to press and hold the escape and the on. So if you notice, they're the top 2 buttons. You press and hold those at exactly the same time. So notice that my calculator is off, and so I'm going to do press to test. So I'm going to take these top 2 buttons, escape and on, calculator's off, and I'm going to press and hold them. And so it's hard to see the screen here, but it does say press to test mode. And it gives you some options. For instance, it says angle setting, and it says degrees. This is really important to change this straight away if you can. So it's best to go there, and then you can go and change it to radian. Or leave it in degree if you wish. And then there's other options here. So if you want to limit the geometry functions, you can look through those different items, see if you want them in there or not when the students are in a test. And then you can enter press to test. And so you press that, and it gets a little timeout, and it'll reset and start again. So that is now in press to test mode. So now it has another menu item, and you can just ignore that or go back and change things if you want, and you can press OK. Now if you did not change it to radians at the beginning, you can go to settings here and change it now. The only problem with that is that you have to do it in the calculator portion, and you have to do it in the graphing mode. It's probably better to just reset the calculator and put it all into radian mode again. And if your students are getting weird graphs that don't look like sine functions, then it probably doesn't have it in radian mode. So you just got to be careful of that. Now to take it out of press to test, you have to have a calculator that is out of press to test, and you got to hook it in here. So it's hooked into both. And notice also there's a little green blinky light at the top of the calculator when it's in press to test mode. We want to take it out of there. So the one with the green smiley face is the one that's out of press to test. This one is in it. Okay, so my battery's critically low, so we'll see if this works. And so if I press enter, if I'm on this black screen, what I have to do is press 2 first, which is my documents. And then I want to go doc 9 and 1, and that will get it out. And so there it's resetting. If it's a different screen, you don't have to push that dock. So to get out, hook up to a, I don't know what that means, on a calculator not in mode, and then the home screen, if that's what's showing up on the calculator that's in test mode, you have to do 2 first. And then you have to do docs, and then 9, and then 1. That will get you out. If it's the gray screen, in other words, it's press to test notification screen, press enter to get into the regular calculator, then you just have to go doc, and then 9, and then 1. And then if it's a regular page, you can just go, if somebody has a graphing page or a page that looks like this, you can go just doc 9 and 1, and that will get you out. So that's how to get out of test mode with another calculator. If you have a docking station, that's going to be a topic for a different video. I'm going to try to set up the docking station and then show you how to get out of it from that. All right, I think that this dealt with most of the tutorial. I do have setting decimal places. This is the screen that I should have shown earlier, but how to set the decimal places. So here's some steps that you could use, and I showed some of them. The hover method when you're in the graphing mode, you can grade the number and then use plus or minus to add or subtract decimal places. And then the home or in graph mode, you have to do it individually possibly. And always create default, and then it will be set there for a while, at least in that particular mode that you're in. I hope this helps you get started, and I hope you learned from this. Thank you very much.